The lecture hall fell silent as Professor Zalthrine's crystalline tentacles clicked against the holodisplay. The Valerian professor had taught xenochemistry for 70 cycles, and never not once had a student interrupted his poison identification quiz with such a casual, almost cheerful question. "I'm sorry," Zalthrine's translator rendered his confusion into standard galactic common. "Could you repeat that, Cadet Sienna?" The human female leaned back in her chair, her dark hair pulled into what other humans called a ponytail. She gestured at the molecular structure rotating above the desk with one hand while the other tapped idly on her datapad. "The poison you're showing us, are you asking which one is the most lethal, which causes the most pain, or which is the most difficult to trace? Because humans have extensive experience with all three categories." A ripple of nervous chittering spread through the assembled students. The insectoid krill clicked their mandibles in alarm. The Dorvanian sitting beside Sienna edged his chair slightly away. Professor Zalthrine's skin shifted through several Calarian, indication of deep disturbance. "Cadet, this is a standard identification exercise. You are meant to simply name the compounder." Sienna brightened considerably. "That's ricin. Well, the Terran version, anyway. This molecular structure is slightly different. You've got an extra hydroxyl group on the beach. Ours doesn't have that." She zoomed in on her data. "Actually, yours is probably less stable. Earth's ricin can kill an adult human with just 0.2 milligrams if inhaled, about 1 milligram if ingested, fatal within 36 to 72 hours, causes nausea, vomiting, internal bleeding, organ failure, extremely painful, moderately traceable if you know what you're looking for." The lecture hall had gone absolutely silent. Henry, the other human in the class, raised his hand slowly. He was broader than Sienna, with sandy hair and what appeared to be a permanent smirk. "Professor, for what it's worth, ricin is pretty amateur hour. If you want to talk about really interesting poisons, we should discuss polonium-210, completely untraceable without specialized equipment, and by the time you develop symptoms, you're already dead. Or VX nerve agent," Sienna added conversationally. 10 milligrams on the skin and you're gone in minutes. Convulsions, paralysis, respiratory failure, one of the many reasons the Geneva Convention banned it. "What," Zalthrine said slowly, "is a Geneva Convention?" "Or it's this list of rules about what you're not allowed to do during warfare," Henry explained. "Chemical weapons, biological weapons, targeting civilians, that sort of thing. We kept having to add to it because humans kept finding new and creative ways to kill each other." The professor's tentacles had gone rigid. "You have ... rules. About warfare?" "Well, yeah." Sienna looked confused by the question. "Otherwise it gets out of hand. The Geneva Convention has 194 although, technically, we've had to create several amendments because people kept finding loopholes." A krill student in the front row raised a trembling claw. You needed rules to prevent you from killing each other too efficiently." "I mean, when you put it like that, it sounds bad," Henry said. "But it's actually a sign of progress. Before the Geneva Convention, there were no rules at all. It was chaos." "Chaos," Zalthrine repeated faintly. Sienna, apparently oblivious to the growing horror in the room, continued. "Anyway, back to the quiz. You want us to identify poisons, right? That's easy. Humans have been using poisons since before recorded history. Hemlock, arsenic, cyanide, strychnine, belladonna, aconite." She counted them off on her fingers. "Botulinum toxin, which is literally the most toxic substance known to Earth science. 1 gram could kill 1 million people if properly dispersed. We also use it for cosmetic procedures," Henry added helpfully. "Botox is just diluted botulinum toxin. We inject it into our faces to reduce wrinkles." The Dorvanian actually moved to a different seat. Professor Zalthrine's colors had settled into a deep purple, the Valerian equivalent of pale shock. Let me understand this correctly. You voluntarily inject one of your deadliest toxins into your own bodies. For aesthetics?" "Oh, that's nothing," Sienna said. "We also practice mithridatism, that's the deliberate consumption of small amounts of poison to build up immunity. Named after King Mithridates VI of Pontus, who was so paranoid about being poisoned that he took small doses of various toxins throughout his life. When he actually tried to commit suicide by poison later, he'd built up such a tolerance that it didn't work." The lecture hall was now filled with the ambient sounds of distressed alien chittering, the Valerian equivalent of hyperventilating. "But, like we learned from the best," Henry continued, "most of our early poisons came from studying plants and animals. Dart frogs, cone snails, box jellyfish, inland taipans. Brazilian wandering spiders. Australia alone is basically a continent-sized laboratory of things that can kill you. You have an entire continent of deadly creatures, Zalthrin whispered. Had Sienna corrected. I mean, we still do, but we've learned to live with them. Antivenoms, safety protocols, that sort of thing. My grandfather used to catch funnel web spiders as a hobby. They're one of the most venomous spiders on Earth. Their fangs can pierce fingernails, but he said, if you know what you're doing, they're actually pretty manageable. Your grandfather, Zalthrin said, each word carefully enunciated, hunted venomous spiders. As recreation. Well, he didn't hunt them. He just relocated them from people's houses. Community service. Really? Henry leaned forward. Professor, are we going to cover synthetic compounds too? Because humans have created some really fascinating artificial poisons. Novichok, for instance, Soviet-era nerve agent, 5 to 8 times more lethal than VX or compound 1080, sodium flu. It's particularly nasty because it mimics natural metabolic processes, so it's almost impossible to detect until the cardiovascular system starts failing. Why? The word burst from Zalthrin like a physical force. Why do you know these things? Why does your species possess such extensive knowledge of death? Sienna and Henry exchanged glances. The human female's expression shifted to something more serious, more contemplative, because, Sienna said quietly, for most of human history, everything on our planet was trying to kill us. Predators, diseases, other humans, the environment itself. We survived by learning, by adapting, by understanding exactly how things could kill us so we could avoid it or use it ourselves when necessary. We're not proud of all of it, Henry added, but knowledge is survival, and humans are really, really good at surviving. Professor Zalthrin was quiet for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice carried a new weight. The Galactic Council, he said slowly, has designated humanity as a category to species, approved for standard military integration. Yep, Sienna said. I am going to recommend, Zalthrin continued, that this designation be revised immediately. The two humans looked at each other again, then back at their professor. To what category? Henry asked. The Valerian's colors shifted through patterns none of his students had ever seen before. I am not certain such a category exists yet, he said. But I suspect one will need to be created. He turned back to his holodisplay with tentacles that trembled slightly. Class dismissed. I need to file a report with the council, immediately. As the other students fled the lecture hall, Sienna called out, Professor, did we pass the quiz? Zalthrin didn't turn around. Cadet Sienna, he said, you and Cadet Henry have taught me more in 10 minutes than I have learned in 70 cycles. Whether that is cause for commendation or quarantine, I have not yet decided. The two humans gathered their things and headed for the door. Behind them, they could hear the professor muttering into his cum device in rapid, panicked Valerian. Do you think we scared him? Sienna asked as they walked down the corridor. Henry grinned. Definitely. Good, she said. Maybe next time he won't assume humans are just another standard species. Somewhere in the depths of space, the Galactic Council received a most unusual report, and humanity's reputation took another step toward the legendary.